far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green
and their hands were blue.
And they went to sea in a sieve. Hi, I'm Alfred, and that's Roz, who you actually know.
And it's Victober, and
September, sir.
by the time this goes up, it will be Victober. And my Victober challenge is to read a Victorian poem, long or short. And the example I gave of how short a short Victorian poem could be was Read a Limerick by Edward Lear. And I've twisted Alf's arm. You can see the bruises. To come and talk a little about
the nonsense that is Edward Lear. Highly entertaining nonsense.
Yeah. So why do you like Edward Lear?
Well, it's just very fun, isn't it? It's playful with form and with language, and it's like it cuts away at that lie of the Victorians as very boring and stuffy.
Absolutely. And he although he had a kind of like some classic Victorian characteristics, well, like he was born
youngest of 21 children.
That's very Victorian, because it's that thing about being at a point before birth control, but once sort of nutrition and healthcare was good enough that you could keep, you could have huge numbers of babies. But anyway, interesting man, never married.
Died in Italy with his long-lived cat and Albanian manservant.
Yes, who'd been with him for the previous 30 years. But the cat was 17. Very precious cat called Foss. So, what do we know him for?
Well, I think
limericks.
I think the iconic thing with Lear is obviously limericks. He doesn't actually invent them. They're around for about 100 years before he's born.
All right. I kind of thought that he invented them as a form.
No, apparently they predate him, but he certainly popularised them massively in his writings.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that, like, if you've got your modern conception of a limerick and you go back and read some of Lear's, they can feel kind of a bit off or a bit dull. There's this stylistic thing where the last line is almost always like a direct repetition of the first line with some very slight tweaks.
Tiny tweak. Yes, it's almost anticlimactic. You're expecting a punchline in the last line,
and instead it's kind of like a circle. It's like a wheel.
Yeah. Read us one. Give us an example.
Where are we? There was an old person of Bar who lost her whole life in a jar, which she painted pea green to appear more serene. That placid old person of Bar.
You see what I mean? Good example.
It's not like a punchline like it would be in a more modern limerick.
Yes. Having said that, he wrote lots of them, and they're very kind of charming
and sweet and
entertaining. But they're not my favourites of Lear's poetry.
The thing with the limericks actually is like, because they're all a person from X. Like lots of the places are places like, oh yeah, I know that, and others are like these bizarre Victorian place names that you're sure are invented.
Because he does make a lot of stuff up. That's his thing.
Yeah,
making things up. It's the essence of nonsense. And his poems that I enjoy most are the ones where he does that
kind of creative
making up. So the poem that lots of people kind of know him for, if they're not thinking of the limericks, is the Owl and the Pussycat, and that's weirdly one of his more literal.
Well, I mean, it's still about, anthropomorphic animals going to sea. It's got runcible in it, which is invented there, even though it's now in standard use.
Yes,
excellent word.
Excellent word, which he invented, and is now, now they make runcible spoons. Like they're a thing. It's something he has in common with Lewis Carroll.
Yeah.
If you think of Jabberwocky and he put words in that were complete and utter nonsense, but people now.
But now, like, a Vorpal sword is a sword that cuts off limbs. Anyone that's any player in any sort of fantasy game knows that. There
you go. But Vorpal was not a word before Carroll put it in Jabberwocky. I think that my favourite Edward Lear poem is the one that you kind of quoted a bit from, and that's The Dawn with the Luminous Nose. But that bit about the Jumblies is used as a refrain in The Dawn with the Luminous Nose. It's actually taken from another of his poems, which is about the Jumblies who went to see a Sieve.
It's as I say that there's the sort of Edward Lear poetic universe.
It's a bit like Marvel, but
because the Dong has bong trees at one point, but then the Owl and the Pussycat are married using a ring from a pig that lived under a bong tree.
Yeah, so it all interconnects. very memorable sort of little refrains, and he does really great things with rhythm.
Also, I guess this other thing with Lear is that he was an illustrator. Like
Yeah.
he did some real illustrations for real proper serious Victorian works like Tennyson,
No.
but also so many of these beautiful little humorous artworks that go along with the poems and the limericks that are almost like part of the punchline or the humour or the nonsenseness.
Yeah, they add something. He also did like lovely watercolours that were like, you know, more arty, but it's his illustrations that you just love now.
Sketches of his cat.
Oh, his sketches of his cat. Go on, show people one of his sketches of his cat, because it's very adorable. He loved his cat Foss with a passion. There we go. There is Foss. So, if you fancy a bit of fun, read some of the Jumblies, or The Dog with the Luminous Nose,
or The Owl and the Pussycat, or a selection of limericks,
or The Quangle Wangle's Hat, or
The Pobble that Lost His Toes.
Yes, because and this is where I embarrassingly
It's embarrassing. Yeah.
Is it embarrassing?
When Ros was very, very small, she was called Pobble by her siblings.
My because I wasn't the youngest of 21. I was the youngest of 7, and and yes, they used to call me the Pobble because of the Pobble who had no toes. So
I think that's a good point to leave off.
I think it is.